I'm Ethan, and my life unraveled when I discovered my wife Lila's betrayals. We met as teens in Oregon, fell hard, and built a family. But her lies started early, whispers of infidelity during my paramedic training. I ignored the warnings, blinded by love. Years later, a text exposed her cheating again. I stayed for our kids, Ava and Noah, hoping she'd change. She didn't. Her night shift job brought coldness, insults, and secret Snapchats. A hidden burner phone revealed the truth. She was a narcissist, manipulating me for years. At 35, I filed for divorce, breaking free from her chains. The fight for custody was brutal, but I became the dad my kids needed. Running trails cleared my mind, meeting Sarah sparked hope. Lila's chaos didn't stop, DUI, broken promises, but I built a new life. Ava's stories, Noah's laughter, and Sarah's love rebuilt me. I faced loneliness, rebuilt trust, and found joy. Now, I'm sharing my story to help others escape. Stay with us to find out how it ends, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I never thought I'd be writing this, but here I am, finally free, with a story that's both a warning and a beacon of hope. My name's Ethan, and this is the tale of how I broke free from a marriage built on lies, reclaimed my life, and found a path to something better. It's not a fairy tale, but it's mine, and if you're stuck in a similar trap, I hope it lights the way out. My story begins in a small coastal town in Oregon, where I met Lila during a summer job at a local ice cream shop. I was 17, she was 16, and her laugh was like the jingle of the shop's bell, bright and impossible to ignore. We were young, reckless, and in love. We dated through my last year of high school, but when I left for college in Seattle, we drifted apart. Life moved on. Fast forward to my early 20s. I just started working as a paramedic, a job that felt like it chose me more than I chose it. One day, out of the blue, Lila messaged me on Instagram. She'd seen a photo of me in my uniform, and her message was light, teasing, like no time had passed. We started texting, then calling, and soon she was on a bus from Oregon to Seattle to visit. It was like we'd never been apart. Within 6 months, she was pregnant, and we got married in a small ceremony at a park overlooking Puget Sound. Our daughter, Ava, was born the next year, and for a while, life felt like a dream. But dreams have a way of cracking. About a year into our marriage, I was sent on a month-long training course in Spokane. It was intense, long hours, no cell service half the time. When I got back, my buddy Nate, another paramedic, pulled me aside at a barbecue. We were crashing at his and his wife's place while we saved for our own. He looked nervous, which wasn't like him. "Man, I hate to say this," he said, "but I saw Lila with Jake at a bar when you were gone. They weren't just talking." Jake was another guy from our crew, someone I'd grabbed beers with plenty of times. I confronted Lila that night. Her eyes went wide, then hard. "Nate's lying," she said. "He's always had it out for me." I wanted to believe her. I was 23, head over heels, and the thought of my family falling apart was too much. So I did the dumbest thing, I bought it. I distanced myself from Nate, told myself it was a misunderstanding. Looking back, I was naive, but love makes you blind. We moved on, or so I thought. A couple of years later, I left the paramedic gig for a better-paying job as a safety coordinator at a construction firm back in Oregon. Ava was growing fast, and we had a son, Noah, on the way. But by 2017, things started to fray. Lila and I were bickering more, about money, about time, about nothing. I'd heard from friends that the 7-year mark could be rough, so I chalked it up to that. Then one night, Lila went out with her friend Tara. She didn't come home until morning, saying she'd crashed at Tara's. I didn't think much of it until a week later when I grabbed her phone while we were joking around on the couch. She'd left it open, and there was a text to Tara. "Last night was wild. Don't tell Ethan about Ryan." My stomach dropped. Ryan was Tara's boyfriend's friend, some guy I'd met once or twice. I showed her the text, and she froze, then started crying. She admitted to a drunken mistake, but swore it was a one-time thing. With 2 kids now, I didn't want to break our family apart. We talked it out, set boundaries, and I thought we'd fixed it. I was wrong. By 2023, Lila took a night shift job at a 24-hour diner to help with bills. Almost overnight, she changed. She'd come home at dawn, barely talk, and snap at me over nothing. She'd call me useless, or boring, words that cut deeper each time. Our marriage was a ghost, No intimacy, no warmth. One night I saw her on her phone, giggling at a Snapchat from a guy named Corey, a coworker she'd mentioned. She brushed it off, saying, "He's just a friend. He doesn't even like women, Ethan, relax." But something felt off. I started checking her phone when she wasn't looking, and the messages weren't platonic. They were flirty, secretive, and some were outright explicit. I confronted her again. This time, she didn't cry or apologize. She doubled down, gaslighting me, saying I was paranoid and controlling. I felt like I was losing my mind. By then, Ava was 10 and Noah was 6, old enough to notice the tension. I stayed for them, but every day felt like walking on glass. The breaking point came in early 2024. I was cleaning out the garage when I found a burner phone tucked in a box of old clothes. It was Lila's, filled with texts and photos with Corey, dating back months. There were others too, names I didn't know, conversations that made my skin crawl. I realized this wasn't just a few slip-ups. This was who she was. At 35, I finally faced the truth. Lila was a master manipulator, a narcissist who'd played me for years. I'd wasted over a decade on someone who didn't respect me, who'd cheated multiple times, who'd made me feel small. I hired a lawyer, filed for divorce, and moved out to a small apartment near the kids' school. The process was brutal, custody battles, her lies in court, but I held firm. Walking away was like shedding chains. I felt lighter, like I could breathe for the first time in years. I joined a local support group for divorced parents, and their stories echoed mine. They helped me see Lila's patterns. Narcissists don't change, they just refine their game. I'd been too young, too trusting, but I wasn't anymore. The months after the divorce were a whirlwind. I threw myself into being the best dad I could be. Ava and Noah became my anchor. Ava, with her sharp wit and endless questions, reminded me so much of myself at her age, but with a spark that could light up a room. Noah, quieter but fiercely loyal, would curl up next to me on the couch, asking about stars or dinosaurs or why I seemed sad sometimes. I never lied to them, but I kept the ugly details about their mom to myself. They deserved a childhood, not a front row seat to our mess. My new apartment was small but mine. I hung Ava's drawings on the fridge and set up a corner for Noah's dinosaur models. Work kept me busy, long hours overseeing safety protocols at construction sites, but it was honest, and it paid the bills. Still, I couldn't shake the loneliness that crept in at night. I'd sit on my balcony, staring at the Oregon stars, wondering how I'd let Lila dim my light for so long. One day, at a parent-teacher conference for Ava, I met Sarah, a single mom whose son was in Ava's class. She was warm, with a quick laugh and a no-nonsense way of talking that felt refreshing. We started chatting at school events, then grabbing coffee when the kids had playdates at playdates. Sarah had her own story, a marriage that ended when her ex got hooked on gambling, leaving her to pick up the pieces. She wasn't bitter though. She had this quiet strength, like she'd faced the worst and come out standing tall. I was cautious. After Lila, trust felt like a muscle I'd forgotten how to use. But Sarah was patient. She didn't push, didn't pry. We'd talk about the kids, about work, about the little things that made life worth living, like the way the ocean smelled after a storm or the perfect burger from the diner downtown. One night, after the kids were asleep at her place, we sat on her porch with a couple of beers. She looked at me and said, "Ethan, you're allowed to be happy again. You know that, right?" Her words hit me like a wave. I hadn't realized how much I'd been punishing myself, carrying the weight of Lila's betrayal like it was my fault. Sarah didn't fix me, no one could, but she reminded me I was still here, still capable of feeling something real. Meanwhile, Lila didn't make things easy. She'd call late at night, crying or yelling, trying to guilt me into coming back. She'd show up at my place unannounced, claiming she just wanted to talk. I kept my boundaries firm, but it wasn't always clean. One night, she left a voicemail saying she'd changed, that she'd been going to therapy and wanted to make things right. I didn't buy it. I'd heard her promises before, and they were always empty. The support group had taught me to see through her tactics. Love bombing, gaslighting, whatever it took to keep control. The kids were caught in the middle, and that was the hardest part. Ava started asking why Mom was always mad, and Noah would get quiet when Lila picked them up for her weekends. I worked with a family counselor to help them navigate it, and I made sure their time with me was steady: homework, pizza nights, trips to the beach. I wanted them to know they were loved, no matter what. By late 2024, I started to feel like myself again. I took up running, something I hadn't done since my paramedic days. The trails near my apartment became my therapy, pounding the dirt, the salt air in my lungs, the rhythm of my steps drowning out the noise in my head. I wasn't just running from Lila's shadow. I was running towards something new. Sarah and I grew closer, but we took it slow. We'd take the kids to the aquarium or hike in the state park, and I'd catch myself smiling in a way I hadn't in years. She wasn't perfect, and neither was I, but that's what made it real. One evening, as we watched the kids chase waves on the beach, she slipped her hand into mine. It was simple, but it felt like a promise, not of forever, but of right now. Work took a turn for the better too. My boss noticed my focus and offered me a promotion to regional safety manager. It meant more responsibility, a bigger paycheck, and occasional travel to sites across the Pacific Northwest. I hesitated at first, worried about the kids, but Sarah and my parents stepped in to help. I started to see a future, not just for me, but for Ava and Noah. A house with a yard, maybe? College funds. Vacations where we'd make memories, not just survive. Lila's behavior, predictably, didn't improve. By early 2025, she moved in with Corey, the guy from the diner, but their relationship was a mess. Fights, breakups, makeups, all over social media. She started missing her custody weekends, leaving the kids with her mom or, worse, canceling last minute. It hurt Ava and Noah, but I couldn't control her. All I could do was show up, every single day, and be the parent they could count on. One night, Ava came to me with a notebook. She'd been writing stories, something she'd always loved. "Dad," she said, "can I read you one?" It was about a girl who lived in a castle with a dragon that kept her trapped, until she learned to tame it and fly away. I hugged her tight, knowing that dragon was Lila, and Ava was already stronger than I'd been at her age. Noah, too, started opening up. He'd always been shy, but he began asking to join me on my runs. We'd jog along the beach, him chattering about school or dinosaurs or whatever was on his mind. Those moments, his little voice, the crash of the waves, were worth more than anything Lila had ever taken. As I write this, it's May 2025, and I'm 36. My apartment's starting to feel like a home, with bookshelves I built myself and a coffee maker that doesn't suck. Sarah and I are still figuring things out, but we're good. The kids are thriving, even with the bumps of co-parenting. Lila's still a storm, but I've learned to batten down the hatches and keep my ship steady. Looking back, I see the red flags I missed, the lies, the deflections, the way Lila made me doubt myself. I spent years trying to fix something that was never whole. But I also see the man I'd become, stronger, wiser, and unafraid to demand better. I'm not perfect. I still have nights where the past creeps in, whispering what ifs. But then I think of Ava's stories, Noah's laugh, Sarah's hand in mine, and I know I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. The journey didn't end with the divorce papers. Freedom, I learned, isn't just leaving, it's rebuilding, piece by piece, until you recognize the person in the mirror again. The months after the divorce tested me in ways I hadn't expected. There were days when the weight of single parenting, work, and Lila's chaos felt like too much. But there were also moments of clarity, like stars breaking through a cloudy night, that kept me going. One of those moments came during a school talent show. Ava had been nervous for weeks, practicing her story reading in front of me and Noah. She'd written a new one, about a boy and his dad exploring a hidden forest, finding treasures not of gold but of memories. When she stepped on stage, her voice steady despite the crowd, I felt a lump in my throat. Noah squeezed my hand, whispering, "She's awesome, Dad." She was. And I realized I'd given her something Lila never could, a safe place to shine. Sarah was there too, sitting a few rows back with her son, clapping louder than anyone. After the show, we all went for ice cream, our old summer haunt, where I'd first met Lila. It could have been heavy, but it wasn't. The kids laughed, Sarah teased me about my terrible taste in toppings, and for the first time, the past felt like just that, past. Work became another anchor. The promotion to regional safety manager meant I was no longer just putting out fires at one site. I was designing protocols, training teams, and traveling to places like Boise and Spokane. It was daunting, but it lit a fire in me I hadn't felt since my paramedic days. I was good at it, and my team respected me. One day, after a particularly tough inspection, my boss pulled me aside. "Ethan," he said. "You've got a knack for keeping people safe. Ever think about consulting? You could write your own ticket." I hadn't, but the seed was planted. Lila, meanwhile, spiraled. Her relationship with Corey imploded by mid-2025, and she bounced between short-lived flings, each one messier than the last. She'd post cryptic rants online, painting herself as the victim, but I stayed out of it. The kids saw through her too, in their own way. Ava would roll her eyes when Lila made grand promises, a trip to Disneyland, a new puppy, that never materialized. Noah stopped asking when she'd show up. It broke my heart, but it also steeled my resolve. I couldn't fix their mom, but I could be their rock. Co-parenting was a tightrope. Lila would push boundaries, like showing up late or demanding extra days when it suited her. I leaned on my lawyer and the counselor to keep things fair. One tense moment came when Lila tried to renegotiate custody, claiming she was in a better place. I didn't trust it, and neither did the judge. The kids stayed with me most of the time, with Lila getting supervised visits after she missed too many pickups. It wasn't perfect, but it was stable, and that's what they needed. Sarah and I kept building something real. We weren't rushing, either of us wanted to repeat old mistakes, but we were honest. She'd call me out when I got stuck in my head, and I'd do the same for her. One weekend, we took the kids camping in the Cascades. As we sat by the fire, Ava and Sarah's son, Liam, roasted marshmallows, while Noah quizzed me about constellations. Sarah leaned against me, her warmth cutting through the mountain chill. "This is good," she whispered. It was. But life isn't a straight line. In late 2025, Lila hit a new low. She got arrested for a DUI after crashing her car into a fence. No one was hurt, but it made the local news. Ava saw it online before I could shield her. She didn't cry, she just looked at me and said, "Why can't she just be normal, Dad?" I didn't have an answer, but I held her until she fell asleep. Noah took it harder, retreating into himself. I got him into art therapy, something the counselor suggested, and slowly, he started drawing his feelings, bright colors for our beach trips, dark ones for his mom's chaos. The incident forced a reckoning. Lila's parents, who'd been distant, reached out, apologetic but firm. They wanted to stay in the kids' lives but asked me to limit Lila's access until she got help. It was a gut punch, but it clarified things. I filed for full custody, and by early 2026, it was granted. Lila didn't fight it, she was too deep in her own mess. The kids were relieved, though Ava admitted she felt guilty for feeling that way. I told her it was okay to love her mom and still want distance. She nodded, hugging me tighter. With Lila's influence fading, our little family found a rhythm. I bought a small house near the beach, a fixer-upper with a yard for the kids and a porch for late-night talks with Sarah. Ava turned 12 and started middle school, all confidence and big dreams. Noah, now 8, joined a soccer team, and I became that dad, cheering too loud at games. Sarah's son, Liam, became like a brother to them, and our blended family felt less like a patchwork and more like a whole. Work kept evolving. I took my boss's advice and started consulting on the side, helping small construction firms tighten their safety standards. It was scary, striking out on my own, but it paid off. By mid-2026, I was getting calls from companies in California and Montana. The extra income went into savings for the kids' future, college, travel, whatever they dream up. I even started a blog, sharing safety tips and later, bits of my story. It wasn't viral, but it connected me with others who'd survived toxic relationships. Their messages, "You gave me courage," or "I left because of you," made the hard days worth it. Sarah and I hit a milestone in 2027. After 2 years of dating, we decided to move in together. It wasn't a grand gesture, no ring, no big announcement. We just knew it felt right. We merged our homes, blending her cozy furniture with my mismatched stuff. The kids were thrilled, Ava called it our superhero headquarters. Liam and Noah turned the garage into a game room, while Ava claimed the attic for her writing. Sarah and I carved out a corner for ourselves, a quiet bedroom where we could talk, laugh, or just be. Lila resurfaced that year, claiming she was sober and wanted a fresh start. I was skeptical but open to supervised visits for the kids' sake. She met them at a park, and for a moment, it seemed okay. Ava was guarded but polite, Noah was shy but curious. Then Lila missed the next visit, and the one after. The kids weren't surprised, and that hurt more than her absence. I stopped expecting her to change. My job was to protect Ava and Noah, not chase a mirage. By 2028, I was 39, and life felt full. My consulting business was steady, letting me work from home when I wasn't traveling. Ava, now 14, got her first short story published in a local magazine, and we framed it in the living room. Noah, 10, discovered music, banging out chords on a second-hand guitar. Sarah started teaching art at a community center, her passion for color and texture spilling into our home. Liam, 13, was our resident comedian, keeping us laughing through teenage mood swings. We took a family trip to Hawaii that summer, our first big adventure. The kids snorkeled, Sarah and I stole kisses by the shore, and for a week, the world felt perfect. On the flight home, Ava leaned against me, sketching in her notebook. "Dad," she said, "thanks for making us a family again." I kissed her forehead, too choked up to speak. Lila's shadow lingered, but it was faint. She'd moved to Portland, chasing another new beginning. The kids heard from her sporadically, birthday texts, random gifts that felt like afterthoughts. They talk about her sometimes, but it was less pain, more acceptance. I kept the door open, but I didn't hold my breath. My blog grew into a podcast by 2029, a side project I never expected to love. I interviewed survivors of narcissistic abuse, therapists, and even a few lawyers, sharing tools for healing and leaving. It wasn't polished, but it was real. Listeners reached out, saying it helped them take the first step. One woman wrote, "I left my husband after your episode on gaslighting. I'm scared, but I'm free." I read that on a tough day and cried, not for me, but for her, for all of us finding our way. Sarah and I got married in 2030, a small ceremony on the beach with the kids as our witnesses. Ava read a poem she wrote, Noah played a wobbly guitar solo, and Liam cracked jokes during the vows. It wasn't about starting over, it was about celebrating what we built. At 41, I stood there, sand between my toes, knowing I'd earned this happiness. The years rolled on. Ava graduated high school in 2033, bound for a creative writing program in Seattle. Noah, 15, started a band, and Liam, 17, got into a tech school for game design. Sarah's art classes became a local staple, and my consulting firm hired 2 new guys, freeing me to mentor others. We weren't rich, but we were rich in the ways that mattered. Lila's last contact was a letter in 2034, apologizing for everything. Ava, 19, read it and shrugged. "She's trying, I guess," she said, but she didn't call her back. Noah, 16, kept it in a drawer but never replied. I didn't push. They'd find their own path with her, or they wouldn't. My job was done. By 2035, I'm 46, and the house is quieter with Ava at college and Noah and Liam in their own orbits. Sarah and I are planning a trip to Italy, just the 2 of us. The podcast is still going, and I'm writing a book, not a bestseller, but a guide for those lost in the fog of betrayal. The kids call us gross for holding hands, but they smile when they say it. Looking back, I see the boy who loved Lila, the man who stayed too long, and the father who fought to rise. I see the lies I believed, the strength I found, and the life I reclaimed. If you're reading this, trapped in a marriage that dims your light, know this, you are enough. The fear is real, but so is your power. Leave, rebuild, trust the path. Your story isn't over. Mine's proof.